The Self-Assessment System, or SAS, is a taxation system where taxpayers are responsible for declaring, computing, and paying their own taxes without direct assessment by tax authorities. It was introduced in 2001 for corporations and 2004 for individuals. SAS promotes voluntary compliance, improve administrative efficiency, and reduce reliance on tax authorities. This is because SAS shifts the burden of tax reporting to taxpayers, allowing the Inland Revenue Board (IRB) to focus on enforcement rather than manual assessment. To ensure compliance, the IRB conducts tax audits and impose penalties for errors, underreporting, and late payment. Compliance with the SAS is important for the country development as tax revenue is used to fund in healthcare, education, and public infrastructure.
The article that our group has chosen to review is Sociology of Individual Voluntary Tax Compliance. This article is written by Nutalu Subramaniam, Yamuna Vaikondam, Dinaswari Nadarajan, and Yap Lailing, which was published on 29 February 2020. This study was conducted based on the transition of Official Assessment System (OAS) to a Self-Assessment System (SAS), which placed the responsibility of tax calculation on the taxpayers. The research focused on how ethical, moral, religious, and cultural background influence an individual voluntary tax compliance. There are three purposes to why our group decided to review this article. The first purpose is to understand the individual tax compliance behavior. By reviewing this article, it will help us to understand as what motivates individuals to voluntarily comply in doing their tax. The second purpose is to identify the gaps in this research. We noticed that the article emphasized the significant effect of ethicality and religiosity towards an individual voluntary tax compliance, while morality and cultural background have little influence. We find this interesting as we believe that morality is often used in decision making. The third purpose of this article review is to identify the challenges faced on individual voluntary tax compliance under the self-assessment system. This is because we want to understand the factors that hinders individual tax compliance under the self-assessment system in order to explore effective strategies to improve tax compliance.
From the article we have chosen, there are 5 key findings that our group discovered. The first key finding is that religious considerations have the highest significant effect on individual tax compliance. This can be seen from the multiple regression analysis where religiosity has the lowest p-value of 0.000 and the highest beta value of 0.823, indicating that individuals with strong religious beliefs are more likely to comply with tax. The second key finding is that ethical considerations also have a significant effect on individual tax compliance. This can be seen from the multiple regression analysis where ethicality has the p-value of 0.001 and the beta value of 0.218, indicating that individuals with strong ethical values are more likely to comply with tax. The third key finding is that morality considerations have an significant effect on individual tax compliance. This is because, based on the multiple regression analysis, ethicality has the p-value of 0.391 and the beta value of negative 0.059. This indicates that personal moral belief does not strongly influence individual tax compliance. The fourth key finding is that cultural background also has an insignificant effect on individual tax compliance. This can be seen from the multiple regression analysis where cultural background has the p-value of 0.658 and the beta value of negative 0.025. This also indicates that cultural background does not necessarily influence individual tax compliance. Lastly, the fifth key finding is that challenges faced with individual voluntary tax compliance. This include financial related challenges, trust in the government and the perception of tax system, complexity of tax law, ethical consideration, and confidential issues.
For critical evaluations, there are 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses that our group has discovered from the article. The first strength is the reliability of the data collected. This is because the study has conducted a reliability test called Cronbach Alpha test, Shapiro-Wilk test, and has received back a high number of valid responses. The second strength is the credibility of the study. This is because the study uses Pearson correlation analysis to investigate the relationship between the sociological factors such as ethics, moral, religiosity, and cultural background with the individual voluntary tax compliance. The third strength is that the study used more than one statistical analysis in order to further strengthen the study credibility. This can be seen in how the study used multiple regression analysis to identify which sociological factors have the most significant impact toward an individual voluntary tax compliance. Moving on to the article's weaknesses, the first weakness is that this study article has a limited generalizability. This is because the study used convenient sampling technique to collect data. The second weakness in the article is the lack of consideration toward economic and legal factors while studying the sociological influence toward an individual voluntary tax compliance. Instead, the article overemphasized the influence of ethicality and religiosity towards an individual voluntary tax compliance. The third weakness in this article is the lack of further explanation on how ethics and moral differ from each other. This is because some might be confused between these two factors as they are quite similar.
Enhancing the study of voluntary tax compliance requires key improvements. First, expanding the sample size using stratified random sampling ensures better representation of taxpayers across different income groups and regions. This method reduces sampling bias and provides more reliable data. Second, economic and legal factors should be considered. Tax rates and penalties for non-compliance significantly impact taxpayer behavior. Understanding these influences allows for more effective policymaking. Lastly, clearer distinction between ethicality and morality are essential. Using prior research and real-world examples will help prevent confusion and ensure accurate interpretation of findings. With this enhancement, researchers and policymakers can develop more effective strategies to improve tax compliance and build a fairer tax system.